Now let's just watch body movements, their disposition, and what they say specifically and things like that.
Back to the very beginning of this, how would how do you think this should have played out? Because I always question in my mind that when I go back, I look at what happened, I look at the initial stories with Nolan, and you guys knew him, right? I didn't know him. I know none of you guys. I just had a chance to meet you guys more recently. But how do you think this should have gone if you could control the environment? Nolan is found deceased. How do you guys think that this should have been put out to the world?
Well, first off, like I wish we would have never.
Now I want you all to pay attention. Notice how they both immediately looked at Warren. Notice how they both immediately looked at Warren. Has he been deemed the one that's supposed to carry the conversation, okay, to push the narrative? And also, another thing I meant to tell you all that I find interesting is that these two right here, Morgan and Jax, why did they all of a sudden crawl out of the woodwork? No one was even talking about them. Everyone was mostly talking about Warren, Wyatt, and Bart. No one was even really, they were not even a part of the discussion, other than the fact that people just mentioned their names as being people that were on the boats. But no one was making anything about them. So where did they just come from? Jumping on the bandwagon, it seems like. But let's continue. And also look at their hands. Look at the way they're both holding their hands together. Okay, look at that. They're both got their hands folded. Okay, please pay attention. I find it also interesting. Okay, I find it also interesting, but let's continue. Like, everyone, please like and share.
Like I think about this every day. Like I wish we would have never went out on the 4th of July because I know this wouldn't have happened. Nolan wouldn't be gone, and like it's really hard to think about because it's like I wish I would have done this different, or I wish I would have done that different because now one of my brothers wouldn't have like passed away. But I think from the beginning, I'm glad that I called the Coast Guard, and I'm glad that we came together as a group, even from the first day when people started texting us things, saying, crazy things. But I wish it wouldn't have been reported as some type of race thing. I think it's really bad that like people are pushing the narrative, oh, this is a race thing. Well, obviously it's not. I mean, this is like a brother to us. I mean, Nolan's no different than anyone else in our group. And I just wish this wasn't pushed on the media as, oh, this is a bunch of white guys that killed a black guy, or this is, four, like in the beginning it was like 4 guys went to a stranded island and dumped Nolan at the island and just left him there. Like even from the beginning, it was just like this thing and no one had facts and they were just pushing this horrible narrative, all lies about everyone. And it's sick. So I wish that would have been completely different. I'm glad I called the Coast Guard. I'm glad I made the first contact within all of this. I'm glad I was the first one that called Christine Wells that night and told her that we haven't heard from her son. And I'm glad that I did all of that, but I hate the way this has been perceived by the media and portrayed. This has like been absolutely horrible with the way and the things that they've said to us and done. But other than that, I mean, there's not much I would change from my point of view and my friend's point of view. I think we did everything right, and I know we did nothing wrong.
I think I also want to say, I think it's so criminal that they took something so anti-racist and flipped it into something super racist.
Now, what I want you to also notice, beloveds, is the fact that they're sitting here making a myriad of excuses for themselves, trying to play themselves as the victims, throwing out the reverse Uno card. But I'm here to draw 4 because I have at least 4 questions. And the first one is, how come they're not talking about Nolan? If that had been my friend, I think that would probably be the only thing that I wanted to talk about, and the circumstances surrounding what happened to him. Not making it all about myself and so concerned about what people were saying about me. Because if I didn't do anything, I probably wouldn't even care what people thought, specifically people that I don't even know. As long as the people that I knew that I didn't have anything to do with it, I would be perfectly fine with that and be more so willing to try to help figure out what exactly happened. I would have had a whole lot of questions. Now, they didn't have any questions. Okay, they're not making this about Nolan. They're making it about themselves. The next question I'd like to know is, why are their hands so clasped together so tight? tightly? I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Why is the lawyer even sitting there with his arms folded so tightly? I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Why is Warren talking so much so with his hands? I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But I just want you all to notice all of these things because I find each one of them very interesting. Okay, why did the guy on the end with the white t-shirt, is that Jax or Morgan? I can't remember. I believe that's Jax. But why is it that he and Warren immediately gave each other eye contact? They locked eyes when the first question was asked. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's continue. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share.
Like they took, this is the definition of anti-racism. I mean, that we did not look at Nolan any different than I looked at him, or even you. You know, this is literally our brother. I mean, like we stated, we did not treat him any different. We didn't treat Trayson any different. We don't treat Trayson any different. And they just flipped it. And I just think that is so wild that they're pushing this thing that they're saying, oh, they want to end racism and all this stuff. Well, they're the one pushing it. They're pushing.
He said people talk about they want to end racism, but we're the one pushing it. How in the hell are Black people pushing racism? We're the victims of racism. So how are we pushing it? He sounds ridiculous. And Warren, I'm sorry, but Warren is just so unattractive. He really looks a lot like Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger. Okay, I'm so sorry, but let's continue.
The racism, and I just think that's kind of crazy.
Morgan, what's your thoughts on this? How does it affect you?
If I mean, first I want to say I wish this would have never happened. I wish Nolan would still be here with us today. And but I in my opinion, I think that the media they shouldn't have pushed a narrative from so early. I think that they should have let the local officials do their job, let them release statements, and then, I mean, the media is obviously going to see that and then do whatever they do. But that's what I mean. I trust the local officials.
He obviously doesn't trust the local officials because now they're conducting their own investigation out there on Horn Island. So I'm sorry, sir, but who? How are you saying that we should trust the local officials and let them do their job, but you're not even letting them do their job? You all have decided to take it upon yourselves and task yourselves, delegate yourselves to do a whole private investigation, sir. You're out there on Horn Island trying to gather the facts or whatever, checking the dynamics and the layout of the land and all of that. So how dare they sit there and tell us what we shouldn't do when they're doing the same things? Because clearly they don't trust local law enforcement. I want you all to pay attention. Okay, but let's talk about their body movement, things of the sort, because I typed all this up last night and I want you all to pay attention. Now, okay, and here's the thing. So first of all, now let's not forget that the Queen graduated from College for Criminal Justice and was formerly a criminal justice professor. That being said, I know a little bit about body language, okay, and interrogating people. All right. Now, that being said, let's talk about it. Okay. So when two people are being questioned, oh, well, that was four people, but the two that looked at each other was Jax and Warren. They gave each other a quick glimpse of eye contact. And so they did that immediately after the first question was asked. Now, it can be meaningful, okay? By itself, it may not be anything, but when you put that alongside other things that they're doing, okay, it really looks like they're trying to make sure the stories are going to coordinate. Okay, it's not necessarily saying they're criminals, but it looks like they may be lying, or they're, maybe they're going to say something that isn't absolutely true, 100% true. Okay, maybe possibly being deceptive, and they're looking at each other to see if the story is going to coordinate. Now, another thing that investigators pay attention to when they're investigating or talking to people like this, they pay attention to these glances, the little swift, shifty eye movements, because they can serve several possible functions. And let's talk about it. Okay, checking the other person's reaction. That's what that looked like to me. Like, how are you going to answer this? What is he about to say? Okay, or seeking confirmation. The person who's choosing to answer may look at the other person for confirmation. Okay, they may want some sort of reassurance that their recollections agree or in alignment, that they're going to say the same thing. Okay, also deciding who should speak. Maybe they just looked at each other like, are you going to answer? You want me to answer? That can also, you know, that could have been the case. You want me to take this one? Monitoring consistency. Someone worried about contradictory accounts. Okay, they may watch the other person very closely. Notice how both of them, as I pointed out to you, immediately looked at Warren, and they kept their eyes on him for the first part of him answering the question. Because they're probably thinking, like, what is he going to say exactly, or whatever? Is he going to remember how we rehearsed it? I'm not saying they rehearsed it, just saying that they absolutely could have, especially when Tap Dance and Tatum's involved. He likely gave them the questions ahead of time. I'm sure he didn't want to throw them any surprises. Okay, looking for personal cues. Okay, one person may be uncertain and use the other's facial expression or body language to guide their response. Okay, they could have been stressed. Maybe they needed reassurance. People naturally tend to look towards someone familiar when confronted with a difficult or surprising question. Now, was the question surprising? I don't think so, because I'm sure Officer Tatum already told them the question prior to them sitting down. That's just my opinion. So what becomes more interesting for the investigative standpoint is this: a repeated pattern around specific questions. Okay. Now let's talk about other things that we're doing. The tightly folded or crossed arms. That's what we saw Trayston do and the other video where he was interviewed. And we also saw the lawyer doing it just now. Okay. Now, this is worth noticing during an interview, especially when they appear suddenly in a response or to a particular question, or if they just have their arms folded the entire time. Because remember how I told you all weeks ago when Trayston did it, to do it yourself, and this just the way he was doing it, to see if that was comfortable, and you all said it wasn't comfortable, and you could tell it wasn't by looking at him. So why would he sit like that throughout the entirety of the interview? You see, this can indicate discomfort, defensiveness, okay, anxiety, self-protection, resistance, or simply they're uncomfortable with the questioning or concerned that they're going to say the wrong thing, trying to be controlled. Okay. And also think about how Trayston was talking so slowly. He was choosing his words very carefully. Now, some people also cross their arms because, you know, they're cold or something like that, but that's usually not a normal resting position. And we know they're not really cold because, okay, it's summertime, and not to mention they're wearing shorts. That's another thing. Look at the way they were dressed. Did you all see how they were casually dressed, but more so overly casual? Okay, they were dressed like they're just going, you know, out to the beach, or they're about to go out and do some, you know, go out and do some yard work or something like that. Now, I would think that if you're going to be doing an interview where millions, possibly millions of people are going to see you, that you would have dressed maybe a little nicer. As even the lawyer, them dressing like that is all on purpose. Okay, that is all on purpose. Are they trying not to come off as snotty rich kids? Yes. Yes. They're wearing flip-flops and cargo shorts and cutout shorts or whatever, t-shirts, caps, and just sitting there looking like, you know, everyday people. They're not trying to dress in a way that you look at them as rich, elite people who have powerful parents. Okay, I want you all to pay attention to that. Okay, songwriter Sonny said they're ghetto. Well, they're trying to act ghetto, in my opinion. Okay, to say the least. But I find it all interesting. So that all being said, now another thing was talking with the hands, which is what Warren was doing constantly. So during a stressful interview, that's what some people will do. The gestures can become faster, repetitive, or more emphatic because the person is anxious, excited, frustrated, or strongly invested in what they're saying, or trying to, you know, trying to hide the nervousness as they're giving their answers. You know, moving the hands around sometimes might make them feel more comfortable. Okay, now the tightly clasped hands. If you notice that both Morgan and Jax had their hands clasped tightly, not just folded hands, but they were clasped tightly, both of them. Okay, that's definitely a sign of tension. Okay, particularly if you see the fingers squeezing, which they look like they were to me. Okay, knuckles whitening, thumbs pressing together, or the hands just becoming unusually rigid. Okay, that's what it looked like. They just both sitting there tense, very tense. I wanted to say loosen up. Okay, so it can be associated with anxiety, emotional restraint, self-soothing, frustration, or an attempt to maintain composure. Okay, now that I'm not saying that any of this establishes guilt. I'm just saying that if you didn't do anything wrong, I wouldn't think that you would have any reason to feel nervous, anxious, or any of those things. You could just relax. Just sit back and relax and answer the questions, you know, normally. I just find it interesting. But at the end of the day, you have the tightened hands, them looking toward each other. hesitating before answering, in some cases, changes, in the body dispositions or whatever. I just think that it all is given suspicion, and I don't think that Officer Rage Batum Tatum is doing them any favors. Okay, Irma says, why hasn't Wyatt been interviewed, and why only interview with Tater Tot if they so innocent? Freddie, Michael, and Jason looking nervous. Just my opinion. Not Freddie, Michael, and Jason. That was a good one, beloved. Okay, exactly. But also, why hasn't Bart been interviewed? Okay, why hasn't Bart been interviewed as well? So those are good questions. I don't know.